Hi, welcome to Michigan Theater and Film Talk. This week we're talking with Diane Hill, one of the producing artistic directors of Theater Nova in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This week we're talking about fighting burnout, opening a theater company, how theater companies close, and much, much more, so stay tuned.
Than anything, because actors are a lot easier to come by than designers. Someone put a cat on a bed and let it pee on the bed. I love equity. I'm proud to be a member of Actors Equity, but it would kill us. As a director, I'm not going to want to work with that person.
Yeah.
People had to sit in that audience and just sob.
Hello and welcome to Michigan Theater and Film Talk. My name is Jeff Tamakis and I am your host of this podcast slash YouTube video. I want to remind everyone before we begin, as always, that if you are on YouTube, if you go to @MichiganCheckoff and hit subscribe and like and share this video, I would really appreciate it. You can also find me on Facebook at Michigan Michael Checkoff Classes -M2C2. And if you like our page, you will be the first to be notified of videos just like this. For those of you who are new to Michigan Theater and Film Talk, this is a podcast slash YouTube video about Michigan theater and film artists. I started with the question, what is the Michigan actor? And have been asking every Michigan theater and film person I could find to help me answer that question. Today, my guest is the one and only Diane Hill, who has been around Michigan for a long time, doing a lot of amazing things as both an actor, a director, and a teacher. So as an actor, a director, a teacher, a producer, a million other things, I'm sure, as a graphic designer. And I'm really excited to talk with Diane today. So hello, how are you? So my first question, of course, which I tend to start this every time, which is why acting? What brought you to theater in the first place?
Oh, okay. Well, when I was 4.
Yeah.
See, I have this theory that you know what you're going to do in life when you're 4 years old.
Okay.
The reason I came to that theory is that my daughter is a doctor, and she was naming all the bones in the body when she was 4.
Wow.
When my other daughter, when she was a strong-willed child, and when I needed to settle her down when she was 4, I would put her in front of the piano. And she's not a pianist now, she's an opera singer, but
She still had a love for music.
that just grounded her
Wow.
in front of the piano. For me, my mom has tapes of me entertaining the crowds with It Was a Yellow Polka Dot Bikini, or whatever that song is. Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny.
And you were 4 years old singing that?
Yeah, when I was
that's
4.
hilarious.
So I think I started entertaining people as early as 4. The first show I was in, I was 10. And it was like the community, it's not a community theater, but it was like recreation center. And they did Peter Pan. And I was like one of the little lost boys or something like that. Well, the next year, I decided I was going to go all out and audition with a full song, because I probably sang Happy Birthday or something at the first one. The next year I went all out and I got Pinocchio, the role of Pinocchio in Pinocchio. So it was a bug. It was really a bug.
So
that
you were
got
bitten
me.
really
Yes,
early.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And through school, I did it through high school. I did, but I also got heavily into choir and music. And I had an amazing woman who gave me free piano lessons. I grew up very, very poor. And I went out and bought a $50 piano when I was a junior in high school. And she gave me free piano lessons. That's kind of unheard of. And
but you must have
then-
seen something in
Oh, yeah.
you, like
I mean,
love for it.
I
I
was-
mean, if you're buying a piano in high school.
Jeff, I was sick about it. I mean, I would go to, my grandmother had a place on Lake St. Clair, and they had a grand piano, but they kept it locked. And I can remember as a child, this sounds so sad, but as a
No, it doesn't. It sounds
child,
really cool.
you know, just moving my fingers on the cover of the piano, just having a yearning for that. And I had several teachers take me under their wings. Now that I think of it, when I was like in 5th or 6th grade, I had Mr. Menges, who sent me over to a stranger's house. I would enter their house and I would go and I taught myself how to play the piano.
Wow.
Going into this stranger's house and playing their piano. So I obviously had this thing inside of me, but we were too poor to, you know, pursue lessons, no dance lessons, no anything, really. And so as a junior in high school, I applied, as a senior, to U of M's music program.
Okay.
And I got a letter back saying, it's kind of unheard of, but we will give you an audition. Because they said most people who audition here in piano have had 10 to 15 years of study. And I had had a year and a half by the time I got there and did my audition. And I got in, but it was at a cost because, you know, I was practicing 5 to 7 hours a day. No, that was when I was in college. When in high school, you can't do that, but I was practicing a lot. All right. So I did my degree in music at U of M in 3 years.
Wow.
But all the time I was doing music in high school and college, I was also doing theater.
Wow.
And that was my love. When I went and did my master's in conducting, I kept sneaking in theater classes. I snuck in so many theater classes that I ended up with a Master of Arts in theater. And I never finished the conducting degree because I didn't need to. And
so just by sneaking in those theater, you
exactly,
wow.
Exactly. And then to round out my education, I ended up getting a PhD in theater over at Wayne State.
Wow.
And all the time I had been teaching and performing, and I was the epitome of burning the candle at both ends because I wanted to be a performer, but I was teaching.
What do you think was driving you so hard back then? Was it love? Was it what was it?
What was driving me to burn the candle at both ends was my ex-husband who didn't want me doing theater. So there's that.
Okay.
There's
right.
that. But in terms of, no, I just had it in me, Jeff.
Yeah.
You know, like you have it in you. It was, just a burning desire to.
Yeah, when you love it, you love
and
it.
to study and to.
You just wanted to devour
be as good
all
as
of
I
it.
could be.
Wow.
That was what I wanted to do. So then I spent a great deal. I spent 20 years basically teaching high school while I was performing professionally. Sometimes there is one time when I actually was understudying at one professional theater and performing at another, but I don't think either of them know about it. So I'm not even going to say what that was.
Oh well. Yeah, I remember when I was living in Minneapolis that I was doing, I was rehearsing Edward II and playing a bunch of little roles, and then I had another show after that. So we'd finish rehearsals at 11, and then we'd start rehearsals at 11:30 till 2 in the morning, and then I worked a full-time job.
Oh my gosh, that's burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah, and you wonder, what drives actors to do that. For me, looking back, it was pure stupidity. But I think I really enjoyed it. But wow. But
well, why do you say it was pure stupidity?
Well, because it was
because you
it was hard.
Wrecked yourself.
I wrecked myself. Yeah, because I was at work going and not really able to enjoy each experience individually the way I could have.
Yes.
But would I do it all over again? Yes.
Yes.
I would do it all
I
over
did the
again.
same thing. I drove now that you've put it that way, I drove myself so that I could act because I was in a situation where I had 2 kids and a husband who was very focused on money and making money.
So he didn't want you to do this at all?
No, he wanted me to do the teaching life.
Your answer to him was, oh yeah, well, I'm going to do it more, right?
Well, then he became my ex-husband.
Well,
and now I am with a beautiful person who knows what who has allowed me to follow my dream.
Yeah,
allowed
and that's important.
Me. That sounds kind of bad.
Well,
who has
not restricted
who
you.
has helped me, enabled me, who has not been in my way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
great. So you were teaching high school,
Yes.
and performing
And getting my PhD.
and getting your PhD.
Yes. Now,
So-
why did
so-
I get my PhD?
Yeah.
So that I could teach at a higher level. I always knew that I was more suited to
Well, you wanted
a higher level of teaching.
You strike me as a person who likes to deep dive
Yes.
into things and,
Yes.
and not just touch
And,
it on
and
the.
a freshman in high school does not want to deep dive. Let's
yeah.
just put it that way. I mean, I really enjoyed it when I got to my juniors and seniors, and they had already taken maybe 3 acting classes with me, or some of the higher level music classes. I loved that, but I did not love the discipline aspect that you would have to do. You know, I mean, I just
sure.
want to teach the thing. I don't want to teach them how
The
to
person,
act. The
yeah.
person, yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
so I got my PhD so that I could, and I sort of, what I ended up doing was staying here in Michigan at the time, and I.
And you're from Michigan?
Yes.
Okay.
I've been in Michigan all the time and done very little performing outside of Michigan, a little bit, but not much. I did get a couple in my job pursuit. I did get a couple of job offers outside of state, but they were. It felt like they were lateral moves to. You know, they were entry level. I know you've been through this. They were entry level.
And I'm still going through it.
Entry level teaching positions that I had built my program up in the high school so much that I felt like it was kind of lateral. So what I did was I stayed with the Michigan public retirement system, which is an important part here, because I had been teaching public school for 22 years or something. By teaching at Oakland Community College, I stayed in that same retirement system.
Oh, that's good.
Yes. So I mean, I was already vested and everything, but that was a big deal. And I started at the Orchard Ridge campus, and there was no theater program when I got there. There were just a couple theater classes.
Was that theater like the building there when you started? Because
Yes.
that's a beautiful theater.
Yes. So the Smith Theater. So I just built it gradually, and I started a degree program there. And I did get Dennis North as one of my adjunct teachers, and eventually. When the Michigan retirement system offered an early buyout, I was ready. I've always been ready to not be teaching and to just be performing.
Yeah.
And actually, that was my dream.
And now you're living it.
And now I am living it. The first year that I quit teaching was also, I want to say, the first year of my second marriage. And but it was also the year of 9/11, and everything dried up in terms of all the acting industry.
Oh,
in terms of the film industry.
Oh yeah, sure.
There was nothing. So I was offered the auto show, which was, great financially, but like on the first day, I was so bored. I bore way too easily for it.
Yeah.
And I looked at the other woman who was there at this small auto show with me, and I said, "What do you like about doing this job?" And then she said, "Well, I like wearing the clothes, and I like the makeup, and I mean, it wasn't for me. I did an entire year's contract, or the whole season, and it paid for one of my daughter's, 1 year of tuition at U of M.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's good.
For those of you who don't know what the auto show is to Metro Detroit, it is a huge event. Was held in January. This year it's being held in the summer because they're trying to make it even bigger. But it is a primary source of employment for a lot of actors.
For sure. And I
area.
think once they start, it's hard to get out of it. So I did a whole season of it. And I thought they'd be sending me to the, nice sunny places. But no, they sent me, because I was just starting out, they sent me to Cleveland and Pittsburgh and
Cleveland's great, but
it was freezing.
It gets pretty cold.
But yeah, the contracts are really good. The money's really good. But I can't say that
it's not what you
retired for. It was not at all my cup of tea, so I've never gone.
Hi, this is Jeff. Just a quick interruption to tell you about a new workshop which I'm holding next month, March 4th, 2020, at the Universalist Unitarian Church of Farmington. The workshop is from 6:30 to 9:30, and since audition season was coming up, I thought I would hold it on auditioning. So you're going to learn some quick and fast tools to improve your monologues and your cold reads so you can really impress those directors. And if you're interested in film, this will still work for you. And the biggest news is that it's totally pay what you can. I'm just doing it so I can meet all of you. So please come on down. I'd love to see you. However, it is pay what you can, but you have to sign up. And in order to do it, you have to go to my website, which is www.michigancheckoff.com, and sign up. We'll see you then.
And then I got hooked up with Breathe Art Theater Project. Do you know who they are?
Well, why don't you explain it?
Breathe Art Theater Project was a theater company that worked both in Canada and in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in right at the beginning, just as an actor. They hired me to do Mercy Seat by Neil LaBute.
Okay.
It's a two-person play, and we did it over in Canada, Windsor, which was silly because it was about 9/11. So we really should have done it in the U.S., but they didn't yet have that theater. So I did that with them, and then I did Wit.
Mm-hmm.
That one we did both at the Capitol Theater in Windsor, and we did it here at what was the Furniture Factory.
Okay.
And I directed a show for them. So that's how I filled that void year. And then ever since, it's been crazy.
Well, crazy in a good way, right? I mean,
when I retired, I didn't really retire. I say I refocused.
yeah.
And when I refocused, I started my own theater company called Two Muses Theater.
Okay.
And that was here in West Bloomfield. Well, where are we right now? Are we West Bloomfield?
We are in currently filming in beautiful West Bloomfield, Michigan.
So we found a beautiful theater inside the Barnes and Noble.
The one that's been closed for like 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not 5 years, almost. But what happened was we were there for 3 years, and it was we got to the point where we were averaging 90 people in an audience per show.
And the Barnes and Noble, was the Barnes and Noble still around at that time?
Yes.
So
There was a theater inside there,
Okay.
a full 160 seat theater.
Okay.
Well,
And
we kind of built it up, but yeah.
That's great. And how did you
Yeah.
do that? I mean, was it pre-existing, or did you
The
create the
Farmington
space?
This was a community space that they had designated for nonprofits.
Okay.
When they leased the building out, they designated this space. And then Farmington, my understanding is that Farmington Players got in there when they were building their new barn. And they sort of laid the groundwork. They put in a lot of electrical, and they put in the stage and stuff. And then when we got in there, when Two Muses got in there, we had to bring in all the lights and put in some money into dimmer boards and everything like that. And so we were going to rent it just for 2 shows. But once we had made it into this beautiful, really viable theater, we knew that people would want to start renting it because it was ready. And so we signed a 3-year contract to rent there. But what happened with Two Muses Theater is a sad thing, because the guy got kind of greedy, apparently. Barnes and Noble and Two Muses Theater had signed another 3-year lease, but the guy gave us 1 month. He did it the very last second and kicked us out, because I think he thought he was going to get a better deal. And now, as you said,
it's been closed empty for,
which is sad. But I guess it's karma for him, because we had to move an entire huge theater out. And
take all your lights and your dimmer boards and everything.
I was there. My husband and I, Steve, were there pulling cable, all of the light stuff for days, because I didn't want to leave all that there.
No, it's expensive.
Oh, it was really expensive. Of course, we got our dimmer boards out of there. We got everything out. We took everything out of there, and we moved it all to Monster Box Theater.
Okay.
That was the only place that I could find that we could move all of our stuff to. I didn't want to move it into storage and then go rent, you know.
Mhm.
I had some offers to take our shows different places, but in the end, Monster Box Theater seemed like the best option. But that also didn't work out. We did 2 shows there.
Mhm.
We did How I Learned to Drive, and then I Love You, You're Perfect Now Change, and that finished out, that fulfilled our subscriptions,
Mhm.
our subscriber series, which was great. But we had gone from averaging 90 a night, a performance, to 40 a performance. We lost a lot of our audience
Sure.
because people didn't want to travel to Waterford.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, theaters are for the community. I mean,
Correct.
not all theaters are community theaters, but all theaters are for the community.
Correct.
Right?
And what happened was with the 2 shows that I did there, I canvassed Waterford in
Mhm.
terms of doing as much marketing there as I could. Couldn't find an audience, Jeff.
Yeah.
Just couldn't find an audience.
Mm-hmm.
So about then, after we did I Love You, You're Perfect Now Change, and it was a wonderful experience. We had a ball. It was.
Mhm.
I really loved Two Muses Theater, and I was able to do so many wonderful shows there.
Mm-hmm. And how
Um,
long did Two Muses Theater?
5 years in
Five
the end.
5 seasons.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
5 complete seasons. But then I had to break it to Paul Stark that I
Mhm.
was going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't working out for me. And at
Mhm.
that point, Carla Millark contacted me almost immediately. And,
She's like, I
and
heard
said,
you're
"Can I-"
available.
and said, can we meet?
Yeah.
And so we met in a restaurant, and she had a plan. She had been working, she had put together Theater Nova, and had been working with Dan Walker and Amelia Rodriguez for 2 years. But I tell you, when it's only that many people, it's very hard to do. I know what she was doing because I did it.
Mm-hmm.
But for 2 years, they had been trying to build Theater Nova, but it wasn't really until Carla got me and David Wolber on board. Now we were a team of 3 artistic directors, which is pretty weird, I
Mhm.
think. I don't know if you would find that anyplace else,
Mhm.
but it's the 3 of us. And
Well, except for Detroit Public, which has I think 3 artistic directors.
yes, but they
too.
have 3 distinct jobs. But no, you're right.
Yeah.
That is pretty much the way.
Mhm.
I never thought of that. That's cool. Yeah.
It's
so,
happening a lot. I think. Well, there seems to be a trend in sharing that artistic.
Well, what happens is
Yeah.
we can each keep changing hats.
Mm-hmm.
And for a person like me that gets bored really easily, that's excellent. For a person like me that has done basically all the jobs, because
Mhm.
at Two Muses Theater, I did pretty much all the technical directing too, along with the
Mhm.
marketing
That's
and the graphic arts, as you said, and
Mhm.
yeah,
That's a lot to do.
sound, everything.
So again, sleep is not your friend.
I had Steve,
Uh-huh.
who is amazing, and
Uh-huh.
he's a computer engineer, programmer, and he helped set up basically. He
Mhm.
was like our systems person,
Mm-hmm.
and so he helped with that, with all the with the business end and with the technical theater end, things
Mhm.
like getting us free software that we could use to run the lights, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that was all great. So here I am. Then I'm signing on for Theater Nova, and that has also been a dream for me. It's been wonderful, and I'm in my. We finished our 3rd season together.
Mm-hmm.
So Theater Nova has been going for 5 seasons,
Mhm.
really 5.5, because they started with. This is kind of boring. I'm sorry. January.
This is not boring at all. This is
They-
not boring at all. I'm very interested in this.
They
I hope you are too.
started a season going January to December. So they did 2 years of that,
Uh-huh.
January to December. When
Uh-huh.
David and I came on board, we said, okay, we need to start a subscription series now. We need to get subscribers. That's
Mhm.
that's how we decided to start. But we didn't want to do a season of 3 shows. First of all, we wanted to switch into the normal season,
Mhm.
September to August,
Okay. And what was it before?
January to December.
Okay.
Slipstream does that
Okay.
still. Not very many people do that, as far as I know.
All right.
So we wanted to switch to that because it's what people are more used to. It's how the grants kind of fall into that more, the Michigan Council for the Arts grants and things like that. So we wanted to be a little bit more like other theaters now. And prior to David and me, Theater Nova was doing a membership thing where if you became a member, you could just go see as many shows as you wanted. And we knew that if we were going to move forward and really build, that we needed to change that system as well.
Okay.
So we wanted to start a subscriber system and teach the members that they had that now you have to actually buy tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be a donor
So
still.
you have to train your audience.
Oh, yeah, and it took a year for a lot of members to really figure it out. But once you start, in the first 2 years, they were having really small houses, so it was absolutely fine for people to just come whenever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
They would just show up at the door, show their card, and then go see the show. But once you start selling, and once you have a subscriber base, you can't risk that.
And you helped build that.
Yes, so that's what we did. But going back to us thinking that we didn't want to just finish up that season with 3 shows, the thought there, I can remember the words at the meeting that someone said was, if we do a subscription for 3 shows, people are going to wonder if we are going to last. They're going to wonder if we're really something, like 3 shows that.
Wow.
So what we did was we called it the super season, and we did 3 shows plus 6, which meant that when I came on board, we had to choose 9 shows, which would take us from January of that year all the way to August, and it would be 9 shows. So we were choosing plays. I spent November and December reading plays.
Wow.
Just tons and tons of plays. And we didn't figure out what our January show was, which was Popcorn Falls, until like a week before we had auditions. But in the meantime, Jeff, we are picking 9 shows and trying to do a subscription for it. That 9 shows means this is the marketing bones. You have to come up with 9 shows that you adore, 9 blurbs, 9 graphic pictures, 9 bits of artwork.
Yeah,
all
9
of
ways,
this.
9 different ways to market each show.
Yes. You have to figure out how everything is going to fit into the season, and everything like that. We're not even talking about money here in terms of budgeting, all of that. But there's so much preparation that goes just into that, and then designing the subscription brochure, and then finding ways to get it out. I mean, when I came on board, they weren't doing bulk mail yet, so that was the first thing that I put in was bulk mailing, which is a whole thing in itself.
Well, it entails you getting the addresses of your subscribers, making sure those are in a database, making sure that you have a system in place to get those things out.
I mean, at that point we had no subscribers. We were working on getting them, but we had mailing lists. We had my mailing list from Two Muses, and granted, that's not a lot of people that are close to Ann Arbor, but it was enough. And then we had some mailing lists that they had for the past 2 years, and some Performance Network people and stuff like that. So
they had a little bit.
Yeah, so Popcorn Falls was our first show. Second show was Clutter, I believe, and that's the show that I directed, and we doubled our audience already. It was a great word of mouth show, and our marketing was in place now too.
Was it because of the marketing? Was it because, I mean, what would you say was that magic ingredient that doubled that?
First of all, it was a great word of mouth play, but prior to that, we had our brochure that had gone out. We had
people knew about it.
Postcards that had gone out on time. Everything was in place. People knew about it, and then once people came to see it, and it was such a good script. that was one of the plays, I told you we were reading tons and tons of plays, and I remember on the spreadsheet I had written, I love this so much. We must do this. We must do this. And they had actually done a reading of it in their Michigan Playwrights Festival a year or so before that. So that was written by Brian Cox, and it was right now his one play, and so I've been encouraging him to get back in there and write another one because that was great.
And Brian Cox is a local playwright?
Yes, a local playwright. So that gave us a lot of courage because now we had doubled our audience. And then I think the next thing that we brought in, which also helped, was The Legend of Georgia McBride, which Carla had mentioned she wanted to do it, and then I realized that my friends over at the Ringwald were doing it, and I love them so much. And I went to see their show, and I said, would you guys like to do it at Theater Nova? So we brought their incredible talent over to Theater Nova, and that was also a huge hit, so we doubled our audience again.
That's great.
So I might have these shows a little out of order, but it's been kind of a wonderful, I almost use the cliche roller coaster ride, but it hasn't been that. It's just been all the way.
So, and this is amazing. And one of the things that, I'm so glad that you're talking with me today is that out of everyone in this area, I think the bones of building a theater company from scratch more than anybody else. And my question would be, there's a lot of theaters popping up. What advice would you give to a young or middle-aged theater person who might want to start a theater company?
Oh, well, I think that having enough people to work with that can each do the major parts. Like I remember working with my now this sounds terrible, but my ex-partner of theater of Two Muses Theater. Anyway, when we started out, I would say, well, I can do this and this and this, but I'm afraid of this, this, and this. And she would say, well, I can do that, that, and that, and I'm afraid of what you just said.
Great.
I used to say, she liked, I liked the cake and she liked the frosting, and we complimented each other that way. So make sure you have that, and also make sure that you have get your nonprofit status right off the bat. I helped Emilio Rodriguez do this with Black and Brown Theater. It's very important. You have to be able to start raising money, first and foremost. And there is a less expensive version of it. I'm sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about, but if you look it up online, you'll see. You can buy it. You have to pay a lot to get your nonprofit status to apply.
Okay.
I think when we did it, it was $800, but I didn't know that you could also do like a $500 version of that, which got you less, but it gets you enough to start out. And by getting you stuff, what I mean is, what you're saying is, we're only going to make a certain amount of money. And probably Two Muses Theater could have done the cheaper version of getting our foot in the door of the nonprofit, because we were probably under that. But what we had going for us at Two Muses Theater is my ex-partner's brother was an accountant for nonprofits, so that helped us. We also had on our board a lawyer. That helps. When you start a nonprofit, you have to have a board.
Okay.
And so it helps to have a lawyer and an accountant.
And how do you get...
And what you can't have, Jeff, is just a bunch of people who want to put on a show.
Okay.
That I learned. I was also on the board of a small theater. It was a community theater in Ann Arbor called Morrisco Art Theater. And the problem with that was so I learned lessons from a lot of different things too. Plus I wrote my dissertation on the attic theater. So that's from the ground up. How do you build a theater? You can learn a lot from reading about how other theaters have done it and the mistakes they made. So the mistakes that Morris Co. made was that they formed an acting company.
But they didn't form a board.
They didn't get anyone who was, all they had was people who wanted to act.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have skilled people.
So that's not I mean, you have skilled people in acting.
In
But that's
acting.
not enough
No,
because
no,
theater is a
No, but
business.
also then you're beholden to all
Mhm.
of them. Then
Mhm.
all of a sudden you've got an acting company and you've got to find roles in your season for each of them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not contributing to the theater,
Mm-hmm.
they're more of a hindrance than anything because actors are a lot easier to come by than designers
Mhm.
and builders and
Mm-hmm.
graphic artists and
Mhm.
people who are willing to go put posters up.
Okay.
You know? So there's that. The mistake that the Attic Theater had was a similar thing. In the beginning, they had people who, you're familiar with the Attic Theater. Lavinia Moyer started
Mhm.
that. People who just wanted to act that I have one story in my dissertation about one actress who was supposed to be in charge of writing this big grant, but instead she cast herself in a show
And then the
you know,
grant didn't get written.
the company sort of fell apart because they were so angry at her and her husband, and people started sabotaging the show, and like
Oh my.
someone put a cat on a bed and let it pee on the bed. Stupid things like that were happening. These are stories in my dissertation.
Wow.
It's really, really quite interesting, but it has to do with, people who just want to act and don't want to contribute. And if you're going to
Mhm.
start a theater company, everybody needs to be willing to do more than just be on stage.
Why now this is a little different question, which is why do theater companies fail? Why did the Attic fail, really? I mean,
Money. It's always money.
Yeah.
It's
Is it an
often
inability to raise
mismanagement.
money, or is it the inability, is
People
it?
get in over their head.
Mhm.
I've heard of other theaters who had
Mhm.
bought buildings that they couldn't afford just the heating on, things like that.
Mm.
They get in over their head. Maybe if you ever talk to Carla, you can talk more about what happened with Performance Network. That's quite a good story too.
Mhm.
But it's always money. Yeah. Well,
Mhm.
no, for Two Muses it wasn't money. And I'll tell you why it wasn't money for Two Muses Theater.
Okay.
Because we had this sweet, sweet deal of we paid $500 a month for rent.
Mhm.
It went up to $550 during my thing. We're paying $6,000 a month for rent at Theater Nova.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay.
500, 6,000.
That changes
month.
the overhead
Yes.
considerably. Are
Yes.
you, and that doesn't include the utilities, or does it include the utilities?
It doesn't, and we have to pay our utilities.
Yeah.
And so that's why Carla, David, and I are still working for a stipend where none of us are salaried.
Mm-hmm.
We are still,
Yeah. And
no one is making a living wage at Theater Nova. No
Well,
one.
well, we do it
Because
for
of
the
our rent.
love of it, right?
Yeah.
And then let's not even. I mean, talking with James about hiring an equity actor, that's another $5,000. Actually, $10,000 just to hire one, because you have to hire a equity stage manager.
See,
on top
that's
of
why
that.
at Two Muses Theater, and I was equity the whole time. I was getting an equity contract, but it was not a guest artist contract. It was a special agreement contract. And you, as a small professional theater, you can get 3, what did I call
Special
it?
agreement?
Special agreement
SAs,
contracts.
mhm.
3 of them.
Mhm.
And you don't have, now I fully believe in equity stage managers, but you can train your managers to act like equity stage managers,
Mhm.
all right? You don't have to be an equity theater at the beginning. And I remember us having that conversation at Theater Nova too, because
Is that a goal for Theater Nova?
David had brought it up as one of our goals, and I just said, why? I love equity. I'm proud to be a member of Actors Equity, but it would kill us.
Mm-hmm. I
And,
mean, is
and
it?
also, we don't even have a building, like, you
Yeah.
have to have a shower in your building, you have
Yeah.
to, there are certain things that
Yeah.
you have to have, we're renting a space.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can still do special agreement contracts, and we can still run our theater like an equity theater, we use equity breaks, we use equity rules, basically, but we are a non-equity theater, and that means we do not have to have an equity stage manager. But like I said, if you train your stage manager to follow the rules of the equity handbook, then we're not abusing anyone.
So, I wanted to ask you, and if this is getting too into it, you let me know. But the emotional toll it might have taken on you with the end of Two Muses, and you didn't know that you had that Carla Millarch was sitting in the back going "Waha." So you had ended that,
Yes.
and then this new opportunity just happened along.
Yes, it, it was, I was worried, you know, where's my next acting job gonna be? That's the beauty of what I have done in building Two Muses and in working at Theater Nova is I know that I'm gonna still be acting, so I don't have that panic that I had, for a while. It didn't last very long because I always got a job, but you know what it's like. It's like you always have in your head, I got to get a job. And because eventually you start to worry that you're going to lose your identity as a performer if you're not out there performing all the time. So what Two Muses and what Theater Nova has done for me has helped to create my own work in some ways. I was a little worried, but not that worried. I felt like I could probably go out and just, I mean, I can travel now if I want to perform out of the state. And when Carla approached me, it was exactly the right time. And in fact, we did 9 shows, and I didn't act in any of them. The first show I acted in at Theater Nova was The Revolutionists.
Okay.
And that was a script that I adored. And
Very
I
good
just knew
script.
I knew I wanted to be in it, and David was directing it, and he was fine with me being in it, and we, ever since then, we have, because I do so much work at Theater Nova, I did have to be clear that I need to act in at least one show. Now, last year it got a little excessive. Last season I was in 3. And I was afraid that maybe we had saturated our Theater Nova audience with too much Diane. But apparently, they've really, I'll be Sally Field here, they like me.
Oh, well, great.
So-
Great. That's wonderful.
So I'm comfortable with that now.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So-
important. I mean, is that why we try to start theaters, is in order to have an artistic home, to have a place
It is
where,
very comforting to have an
Yeah.
artistic home, but I will tell you this, Jeff, if it doesn't fit you, it doesn't fit you.
Yeah.
And Theater Nova fits me.
Yeah.
Carla and David and I, we have the same politics, we have the same sense of humor, we have the same level of intelligence. We balance each other well. I just feel like our artistic desires are the same. We
Yeah.
all want to do the same kinds of shows.
That's great.
We all get appalled by certain kinds of theater. I mean, we have
Yeah.
the same theater sensibility.
Okay.
And now I am super comfortable. And I've also learned that I really love to do new plays. Like Carla, that was her mission. Our mission at Theater Nova is to do new plays and focus on new playwrights. And I have discovered that it actually started with me in Two Muses Theater when I was in Next to Normal. I've discovered that I need to be in shows that change me and change people, change the people who come to see it, change the people who work on it. I need it to be important.
And not so. You don't think that older shows accomplish that mission as
Not
well?
always.
No.
Sometimes they do. It's funny because our mission at Two Muses Theater was to create opportunities for women. And we were very good at it. All of our designers, pretty much all of our designers and tech people were women, and the directors were women. And we tried to pick shows that used a lot of women, not because we don't love men. We all love men, and most stories involve men, so we were casting men as well. But at one point, we decided, oh, well, we really should do Steel Magnolias. Because, you know, it's a cast of 5 women. And my ex-partner and I were on a train coming back from Chicago, where we had seen some theater. We had gone to see Love, Loss, and What I Wore, and we're planning our season. And we're bringing it up, oh, we really should do Steel Magnolias. So we did it, and I could not resist being in it. Nancy Kammer directed it. And I said, Nancy, I just want to be in it. You can cast me however you want. So I played the role of Clary. And Jeff, it changed me. I loved it. You know, it's an old piece of theater, and I loved doing it. We had audience members writing letters about how it touched them. And so I don't want to sell any old theater short or any classic theater short at all. But for me, I'm more excited. Like, I'm more excited when you do something new with Shakespeare, let's say. Some people are more like, oh, well, why are you messing with Shakespeare? But I like to do things that I find a little bit more exciting. I mean, when I was in high school, we did a production of The Misanthrope, but we did it as animals. So, you know, I guess I've discovered that some things are a little bit boring for me.
Well, you have to follow where your
I did a couple GNS shows, for
Yeah.
instance, when I was at U of M, and I was like, this is not challenging for me, and it's not challenging the audience, and okay, it's pure entertainment. That's fine. It's just I'm older now, and I just want to do other things.
Yeah, you want to challenge people.
Yeah, when I was younger, I would take any role, except for slasher films, like if I got offered that kind of crap. Those kind of things, if I got offered that, I would say no. But basically, when I was younger, I would accept anything. Now, I have the luxury of being able to choose what I want to do.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the change in mission that you had from Two Muses to Theater Nova. Now, with Two Muses, you had a specific mission to give more opportunities to women.
To create opportunities for women.
Yeah,
yes.
to create opportunities for women. Do you find that that's still working in your subconscious as you move into Theater Nova?
In Theater Nova, we are very interested in creating opportunities for as diverse, as many diversity is the big thing with us. The shows that we choose, we did, I directed Kill Move Paradise, which changed my life, changed the life of many people who saw it. It ended up winning the Council Carville Award for diverse storytelling. This year we did Admissions, which is basically about white, what's the word? Help me.
I don't know.
Privilege.
White privilege. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, it's basically about, I played the role of someone who is all about building diversity into the school. But when it comes down to how it affects my own family, when my son doesn't get into Yale because he's white, that's what that play was about. So these are things that we are very focused on at Theater Nova. So I feel like, yes, my mission at Two Muses was to create opportunities for women. At Theater Nova, it's
You've opened
it's
up
still,
the filter a little
yes,
bit.
Exactly.
What would you say to a young, because there's a reason why you started with that in mind with Two Muses, what would you say to a young woman who is trying to make it in Metro Detroit?
The problem is that the amount of roles for men are always greater in almost all theater. So that's why at Two Muses we tried to focus on plays that had more women in it to create more opportunities. But if you're a woman and you're out auditioning, that you might have more competition because there are a lot more women out there auditioning too than men, and there are usually more men's roles. So it's just tough. You just gotta do the work. You gotta be positive. Be positive is really important. visualize yourself successful.
Uh-huh.
I think that's important. No, I've seen people shoot themselves in the foot.
Because
just
they
by-
failed before they even walked in the door.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. You have to visualize yourself being successful, and you have to show who you are,
Mhm.
and you have to be pleasant but not fake.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I met a lot of people through my life, and I realized that the more successful people were, the nicer they were.
Yeah, I found that too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm glad that you do,
Mhm.
because I've seen people who are not nice. And then they maybe are wonderful and incredible performers, but if they're not nice, they're not going to make it for very long.
At the end of the day, people want to work with people they like to work with, not people who are super talented who are a pain in the butt to work
Yes,
with. Yeah.
agreed.
Mhm.
But as a director, when I'm casting people, I'm not choosing people because I like to work with them.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I'm choosing the people who have the
W-
who are real, very
Uh-huh.
truthful,
Uh-huh.
but also I must say, if they show some side of themselves that is a negative side during auditions, let's say if I'm giving them a coaching or whatever,
Mhm.
giving them an adjustment, and they don't take it well. You know,
Mhm.
basically, as a director, I'm not going to want to work with that person.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I wanted to touch a little bit about your work with the film industry here, and if you know, what is that like for you? What has been your experience?
oh, it's super interesting how that has worked. Generally, when it rains, it pours in the film industry. It's like
Mhm.
you start to get all these jobs, and then you keep getting more and more jobs,
Mm.
and then suddenly it dries up, and you don't
Mhm.
get anything, and then you're like, oh, should I be calling my agent and reminding them that I'm here?
Mhm.
And then like 2 years, and then you don't do it because it's like, who wants to do that?
Mhm.
I'm calling to check in,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, and they're like, we know, we know there are actors in the world that exist. Thank you. Click.
So I was never one to do that, but it's come in fits and what's that word? Fits and
spurts?
Yeah, it's come in fits and spurts for me, film wise, and I've done a lot of commercial work and a lot of industrial film. None of it is stuff that I'm enthused about, Jeff, but it's good money, frankly. And even the feature films that I've done, I was always really super excited about doing them, and then I'd get there and on the set, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't get me acting wise. It's not. It doesn't satisfy me.
Yeah, fill
But
that need that we talked about earlier.
There's
Yeah.
nothing about it that is like getting what you get from an audience,
Mhm.
or getting what you get in rehearsal when you're really connecting up with somebody.
Yeah.
There's not that you don't get that in film at all.
Mhm.
So that's how I feel about film. But you know, like a couple of weeks ago, I did a voiceover and I made what I make in 3 weeks in theater in an hour.
Yeah.
So
Well,
there's that too.
I think it was Judge Reinhold. I saw an interview with him years ago. Judge Reinhold. Yeah, I pulled that name out of there. But you know, he was doing Beverly Hills Cop 3, and they were asking him, "Why are you doing Beverly Hills Cop 3?" And he's like, "Because it pays for three
Yes.
seasons of me doing theater."
Yeah.
And I always
exactly.
thought that was a great answer. It stuck with me, obviously, because it's been
Yeah.
a year since Beverly Hills Cop 3.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but
And I should say, there are very few auditions that I have turned down
yeah.
for film or
Yeah.
or anything. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, because
So-
it allows us to do the other things.
Right, right.
So, where do you see yourself going? In what's your 5-year plan? What's going on with you?
Oh, I just want to keep acting.
Yeah.
That I just got off of a run of doing 8 shows back to back to back, which just about, you know, I mean,
Yeah, that's
I
a
was
lot.
great. That was a lot.
Mhm.
But that includes directing Kill Move Paradise in the middle of it. And in fact, it was going to be 9 shows back to back to back, but that one got canceled because the actors that were cast were it was at the Ringwald.
Mhm.
All the actors were so busy that Joe Bailey couldn't find enough quality rehearsal time to put on a good show. So,
so you still audition for Ringwald? You still audition for these other theaters?
I auditioned, yes.
Okay, all right. They still call you up and say, I mean, it's good to be in that position.
Oh, but I
where-
do generals.
yeah.
I absolutely do generals. And it's actually quite disappointing to me that I'm not being cast other places. But sometimes I wonder if it's because they think I'm too busy. I'm not too busy.
I don't think
I
any
would love-
actor is too busy
yeah.
to be offered work.
I
really.
would really love to
Not around here.
work at a variety of theaters. 2 years ago or so, I did work over at the Open Book Theater, and that
Okay.
was really fun. And I did company over at Ringwald.
Mhm.
But like, yeah, I do generals at Meadowbrook, and I don't think Travis has cast me since I started Two Muses Theater. So maybe
And
it
that
has
may-
to do with
May have
being
nothing
an
to do with nothing.
Could be,
or-
but I love
yeah,
him, and he
yeah.
loves me. So damn
Yeah.
it.
All right, Travis, if you're watching. Very good on it.
But no, I'm happy to go and do generals and put myself out there. I did all the generals this year too, but Theater Nova was the only theater, and Ringwald were the only theaters that cast me. So.
But you're not starving for work. And it's not like you're. I mean,
No,
sorry, but there's
I-
not a tear welling up in my
I
eye for you.
totally understand.
Yeah.
I get what
But it's
you're
good to get
saying.
the offer. It's good to be asked out to the party, even if you don't want to go to the party.
I do want to go to these
Yeah,
parties.
you want to go to all the parties.
I want to go to Williamston, Tipping Point.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Meadowbrook.
and explore
Yeah.
these different audiences.
Yeah,
Now,
for
how
sure.
would you say these audiences, vary? Are they the same all over, or would you say that performing for a Williamston audience would be a different
Yeah, no,
sensation?
audiences are different everywhere for sure. We can do at Theater Nova stuff that other theaters cannot do. We have very much of an academic society. We did the How and the Why last year, which was about two evolutionary scientists, biological evolutionary. Oh my God, I was the character and I don't remember what we were, but it was two of us. I was one, and my adopted daughter, or my blood daughter, was one, and we're just talking science theory the whole time for an hour and a half, basically, and it was like the sleeper hit in Theater Nova. They loved the science. At Theater Nova they did Irrational, which was a musical about math, basically.
Yeah.
So we can do, and then Kill Move Paradise, I was kind of terrified to do because it's really, I don't know if you know that story. No one really does, but it's about 4 African American men who have been taken out of this world by police, basically, killed. Police violence, and it was very controversial. And for 5 minutes of the play, this sounds boring, but it was really a stunning moment. We read the names of all the people in history who have been all of the diverse people, all the people of color who have been killed through police violence. Racial stuff. So I was kind of worried that this was.
And the audience, how did the audience react to that?
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was. They received it very well, and it ended up being. We sold out all the time, and like I said, it changed people.
Yeah.
People had to sit in that audience and just sob afterwards.
Well, it's
because it is sad.
It's interesting because I was just talking to Lynch Travis about his dream is that every theater in this community do at least one play an African American play a season. There are theaters that are afraid of doing that because, according to Lynch, because of my audience.
I agree. I mean, I that's why I'm so proud and happy to be in Ann Arbor where we can do that. And but no, I think that it wouldn't work. I mean, some of the actors in my show came up to me saying, "Thank you for doing this," because no one else would. But that's because we could. It wasn't going to break us. But you know what? That's what nonprofit is, guys. That's what being a nonprofit is for. It is so that you can do some of those edgier things.
Are there grants available to specifically do a play like that?
Yeah, I'm sure there would be. We honestly, none of us have the time to go searching for that stuff right now. Right now, we write one grant, and it about kills us because it's still just the three of us working for no wage. You know? But we get our operational grant from Michigan Council for the Arts and the NEA, and it helps us to pay our astronomical rent.
Yeah.
And then you need the nonprofit status to get your donors. You know, I've never been one to chase after people for money. That's hard. So
but it's
Carla does that.
Yeah, it's almost an essential part of the
It is
the job.
one of
though,
the
right?
major parts. Yes.
Yeah. What to you is the Michigan actor? What is a Michigan actor in your mind? You've auditioned them, you've trained them. How would you say a Michigan actor might be different than any other actor out there in the world?
I think that a Michigan actor generally, when it's a non-equity actor, is someone who is spread very thinly. Number one, they are working at as many different small theaters as possible, and they have a day job, basically, and they are not making a living wage, and that's sad. Now, if you get into the equity actor people, if they're working regularly, then
Which is about like 5 dudes.
exactly,
Yeah.
then it's a whole different picture. But if you are an equity actor who is not working regularly, you also have a day job, and you are like me. I was doing guest artists for various.
What direction do you
places.
see Michigan theater going? Is it getting better? I mean, one of the reasons I started this project is because I left for 7 years, and I came back, and it seemed like, forgive me, but everyone was talking about the same stuff.
Yeah, nothing changed.
Nothing
Yes.
changed in the 7 years I mean, Lynch said, well, there is some change. You're seeing some seeds of that change. You're seeing some buds happen. What do you think is happening with the theater community here? Do you think it's growing? Do you think it's diminishing? What would you?
Well, I think that new theaters are popping up all the time, which is great. But then we lose them too. Out Visible is an example. That's gone. Breathe Art Theater Project is an example, but that's gone. Theater companies pop up, and it's a matter of, can they get into a space where they can do their theater, do their stuff, and do they have audience support? And do they have enough people so that they personally aren't all just burning out? You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you fight burnout?
Burnout isn't much of an issue for me. It was with teaching. I worried about that because that wasn't where my heart and soul was. And I did a good job. I know that a lot of, if any of my students were listening, they might be a little upset hearing me say that, because I loved them and they loved me, but my heart really is with producing and acting and directing theater. Why I don't get burned out because I do so many different jobs, and I also like working.
Yeah.
I like working a lot.
Well, it sounds to me like you love working.
So when Steve and I went on our last vacation, it was because my show at the Ringwald was canceled, it was the first vacation I didn't have anything to memorize, Jeff. First vacation in a long, long, long time, okay? Steve is great. He helps me memorize my lines. And so on vacation, I would always have like that 1 hour, 1 hour and a half that I would work. Or if I was directing a show, I'd have that 1 hour to 2 hours where I would be working on staging or a rehearsal schedule or something. But I had something to work on on vacation. So this is making me sound a little bit sick, but I like doing it.
Yeah, I mean that's why I ask you because you rattle off. Well, I did this, and this, and I'm thinking to myself, I think I would die with that schedule.
Oh yeah,
but,
I like doing it. I don't like
Yeah.
I don't like being bored. I like to have something. I like to have something to work on. I enjoy running a business. I always thought that if I wasn't a theater person, I would make something and sell it. You know.
Well, that's what
Make it
you're
and sell
doing.
it.
That's what you're doing now.
That's true. I'm making theater and selling the theater, and I do all of the box office work and stuff like that. I don't mind. I like it.
Wow.
So I don't. Well, so I'm not going to burn out because plus you're doing a new show each time.
And it's a new
Yeah.
show equals new
when you're
family.
teaching,
and-
it's the same class. Although I try to spice it up. Every single term, I would teach other stuff, but you still have to teach the core stuff no matter what. So, but yeah, so there's that, and then I've had a lot of different kinds of training too, which has helped with that. Like I did do Michael Chekhov training, and I did Meisner technique, and other training has kept me enthused about my own acting too.
Speaking of which, that actually brings us to the end of the interview. Believe it or not, it's been over an hour.
I have talked way too much.
You have talked, believe me, if you didn't do any of the talking, this would be a very boring interview. Because it'd just be me going. So, again, this has been Jeff Tamakis. This is Michigan Theater and Film Talk. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, which is www.michiganchekhov.com, or you can go to my personal website, which is www.jefftamakis.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to go to Theater Nova. What's the URL for Theater Nova?
www.theaternova.org.
And that's a theater with an R-E, right?
R-E, thank you. I always spell it out on the recording
Yes.
so that people don't spell it wrong.
That's right. Theater Nova. They do some great work. Go and check them out. And we'll see you guys later.